What's up guys, hope you're all doing well. I'm always excited about new Sony smartphones, probably a little bit too excited, but a Sony device is always a breath of fresh air. Not necessarily always in a good way, but still. I've used many Sony phones in the past, most recently obviously the Xperia 1 Mark II and 5 Mark II, and I've always liked the direction that they continue to go towards with their devices. Of course, they've never really been kings in terms of price to performance ratio, but usually a couple of months after release, once the price drops, they're a pretty good buy. This time around I've got their newest mid-range offering. This is the Xperia 10 Mark III. It continues the Sony philosophy, but it is stripped from a lot of the premium features and comes with a more modest price tag of around 400 euros. This is a tough price range. There are a lot of very aggressively priced phones from the likes of Xiaomi and others, and on paper the 10 Mark III doesn't seem to be equipped as well as some of the other competitors. But maybe the Sony magic can prove to be enough to keep it competitive? Let's find out. We'll start from a high note, the design of this phone. It hasn't changed much from the last year's model, and it clearly kept the Sony brand identity. You can't mistake it for any other brand. I've purposely got the white version since I figured it would be the most eye-catching, and boy did it deliver. In my opinion, the phone looks fantastic. The contrast between the white frame and the black bezels is awesome. I generally don't like glossy back panels, but white ones are definitely an exception. It looks very elegant. No unnecessary branding, just pure style. It feels a little tall because of the 21:9 ratio screen, but it's still great to use, fairly light and nimble, very similar experience to the Xperia 5 Mark II. On the left side we've got Sony's usual toolless SIM tray, and the second SIM slot is also shared with an SD card slot. On the right side there are our volume rockers, power button which doubles as a fingerprint scanner, and also a dedicated Google Assistant button. One little nitpick, which probably comes down to quality control, is the fact that my white back panel seems to be shifted a little bit under the glass, which results in uneven grooves on the left and right side. As you can see, the right side is nicely aligned with the frame, and the left side is a little offset. Nothing too dramatic, and I forgot about it quickly, but I would like Sony to keep a close eye on their production process. Also hard to say how often this occurs in this particular model, maybe it's just my unit. Last but not least, the 10 Mark III is IP68 water and dust resistant certified, which is definitely not a feature you'd expect from a 400 euro phone. Very impressive. The screen is a mixed bag. Of course, I have to mention the obvious fact. It has no cutouts for the selfie camera, as with every Sony phone lately. We've got bigger symmetrical bezels on top and bottom, and an uninterrupted screen, which except for an under-display selfie camera is my favorite solution. Everything is nice and clean, no holes, no notches. On one hand, it's clearly a quality panel, 6-inch OLED with a reasonably high resolution, 10-bit and all the good stuff, colors are nice and vibrant, although I would suggest switching the white balance setting from a default cool variant to medium. It's clearly shifted too much towards blue from the get-go. On the other hand, 60Hz refresh rate on a mid-range phone just doesn't cut it in 2021. Most competitors are already equipped with 90 or 120Hz OLED panels. The screen is also not very bright, it has problems in bright sunlight, and that's backed by GSM Arena lab tests, where the phone measured roughly 200 nits lower max brightness than some of the competition. All in all, it's a fine screen, but you would expect just a little bit more. Performance-wise, everything is great. Sony software is very close to stock Android, as you might have noticed in my other videos. I do like manufacturers who try to keep a clean software while at the same time implementing some of their own flavor and features. We don't really see this too much from Sony, except for a couple of things. First of all, the split screen functionality is notably enhanced. It can be accessed from the task switcher in the bottom right corner, a multi-window mode, so we are getting two app carousels stacked on top of each other, so we can easily choose which apps we want to use with the split screen. Some standard apps are already preset here, but you can also go to all apps to open whatever you want. Once you've chosen your apps, hit done and they open in a 50-50 ratio, and you can use the slider to divide the screen however you want. The nicest thing is that once you go into the multi-window mode again, your previously used app pairs are remembered and displayed on the bottom. For quick selection. So if you use a certain pair of applications together often, One click is all you will need to open them quickly. Very, very nice. Second Sony in-house feature is the side sense. It looks very similar to many other sidebars you might have seen in other phones. I like the fact that it's activated via a double tap on the side instead of a long swipe. You can configure the apps you want to be displayed via the settings. You can also activate the one-handed mode as well as the previously mentioned split screen functionality via SideSense, again with a quick access to your favorite app pairs. One software feature I am really missing in the phone, and that's a very basic one in my opinion, is the double tap to wake functionality. It is missing on the Xperia 10 Mark III, and that's a feature I'm using on a daily basis, so that's a big absence. As for the hardware, the Snapdragon 690 seems like a very wise choice in a phone like this. There is only one spec available, 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, but once again you do get the option to expand the storage via a micro SD card. All in all, everyday usage feels great, even though the 60Hz screen takes a bit away from a general perception of the fluidity of the device. Fingerprint scanner, as with all the Sony side-mounted ones, is fantastic, very quick and most importantly extremely reliable. A slight touch of your finger and the phone unlocks every single time. There is a tiny delay before the screen turns on, but all in all it's great. Type-wise, I prefer the under-display ones because for me they feel more natural and in line with where your thumb usually is, but those are never as reliable as the capacitive ones. One little gripe with the side-mounted fingerprint scanners is sometimes when you handle your phone or it's in your pocket, you accidentally touch the scanner a couple of times and it locks you out of fingerprint recognition for 30 seconds. It doesn't happen very often, but I had it happen a couple of times, so that's one downside to this type of a solution. Audio side of things is mediocre. While the phone retains the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is awesome, the speaker situation is not that great. Similarly to the previous generation, the 10 Mark II, we still don't have stereo speakers on board, which is a shame considering the top and bottom bezels just scream to put them in. Considering the closest competition, which is the Samsung A52 5G and the Poco F3, both come with stereo speakers, Sony does fall short in that regard. As for the quality, the bottom speaker is actually not bad. Outputting a clean sound with a balanced frequency response, the max volume is only average though. The lack of stereo speakers feels pretty bad since the 21:9 aspect ratio screen is especially great to use in landscape mode. Battery life is probably where Sony improved the most from the previous generation. The 10 Mark III packs a beefy 4500 mAh battery, a huge jump from last year's 3600. The combination of a big battery, smaller 60Hz display and a power-efficient chipset results in outstanding battery endurance. I was comfortably getting 2 days of normal usage with the Xperia, with screen on times crossing solid 8 hours. Really impressive for Sony to achieve these results with a device that's as slim and light as the 10 Mark III. As for the charging speeds, things are not that colorful. While the phone supports 30W fast charging, it actually comes with a measly 7.5W charger, and the charging speeds with the bundled charger are laughable, around 25% in 30 minutes and full charge coming at around 2 hours and 40 minutes. Things got slightly better when I used a third-party 30W charger. 30 minutes yielded 35% charge and a full charge took exactly 2 hours. Still not in any way impressive, but given the amazing battery life, I let it slide a bit. I also do recommend turning on the battery care feature, which allows the device to stop charging itself at 80 or 90%. You won't miss the little extra charge with the super battery performance, and preserving battery life and slowing down degradation is always a good idea. Last but not least are the cameras. These are also very similar to the 10 Mark II and it's a mixed bag. Some progress would be nice to see, but at least we don't have any bullshit lenses stuck onto the phone just to inflate the count. Main camera, ultra-wide one and a mild telephoto, boom, that's the setup you want to see in a mid-range device. Front camera is also unchanged from the last year's model. First of all, unlike the Xperia 1 Mark II and 5 Mark II, we only have one camera app in this model and it's the usual basic one. Pretty standard. One thing I don't like is that the focal length switcher cycles through different options instead of giving us a list after clicking. As for the quality of the photos, main camera is decent in good lighting, although the HDR algorithm sometimes does weird things with exposure. Zoom is okay-ish, up to 5x, but be prepared to lose some of the detail and sharpness. Ultra-wide photos are pretty nice overall, very comparable to the main camera ones, possibly even better in terms of color and exposure. Low light isn't amazing, it can't be with the sensor that we have here. You do lose pretty much all the detail in the shadows. Night mode is present and it helps a bit, but the highlights are still a bit overblown, and it introduces a fair amount of noise in darker parts of the scene. We also have creative effects option available, which lets you have a little fun and produce some interesting effects, like this Harris shutter effect, or for example photos with very high contrast like this one. The phone records videos up to 4K 30fps from the main camera and 1080p from the ultra-wide. The picture quality is okay, but there is no optical image stabilization and the digital one is poor, so moving videos are very shaky. That's pretty much it. It's hard to call the Xperia 10 Mark III a game changer, but it keeps the Sony philosophy alive. It is different from most other mid-range phones, but you knew that already. And of course there are two sides to this coin. Compared to some of the competitors, it brings superior battery life, respectable, albeit not always great, camera system, water resistance and OG features, micro SD card support and a headphone jack. On the other hand, the display is a bit outdated with the 60Hz refresh rate and low max brightness, it lacks stereo speakers, the supplied charger is a joke, although it's hard to be mad at this when you consider the battery life you're getting. And some of the other phones have slightly better specs, but again, I haven't had any performance related issues with the Xperia, so I'm not complaining. In the end, it is up to you which features are the most important to you, but I can definitely see the 10 Mark III being a viable option to some of you guys. And I have to say, it just looks fantastic in white, but I admit I might be a little bit biased towards white phones. The availability is still pretty lackluster, but it should improve in the near future. Anyways, that's gonna be it from me for today. As usual, hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and most importantly subscribe if you want to support the channel moving forward. And I'll see you next time.